Heberson Lima de Oliveira never imagined that an ordinary afternoon could tear his life in two. At 25, he was strong, calloused from labor, and proud of his work as a bricklayer in Manaus, Brazil. His world was simple but decent: long hours mixing mortar, short evenings with family, small dreams that kept him steady. Saving to build his mother a better home, maybe starting a small crew of his own. The sun was lowering when it happened. He was walking home, helmet dangling from his hand, shirt damp with sweat. Two police officers pulled up in a dusty patrol car. "Heberson Lima de Oliveira?" one asked, flat and cold. "Yes," he said, blinking at the sudden authority in their voices. "You're under arrest." The words didn't make sense. Arrested? For what? What's happening? "I didn't do anything," he protested, his voice cracking between disbelief and fear. But the officers didn't explain. They didn't need to. As they shoved him into the back seat, curious eyes peered from windows and doorways. Whispers raced faster than the car could drive. By nightfall, the neighborhood had already judged him guilty. Heberson was accused of an abuse crime, a crime he did not commit, a crime no one had even tried to prove. Inside the holding cell that night, Heberson told himself it was a mistake. They would see there was no evidence. They'd let him go in a day, maybe two. He would wake up, go back to work, and laugh about it later. But when you are poor, when you have no power, an accusation is enough to erase your life. The iron doors of the penitentiary slammed behind him with a sound that felt final. Prison in Brazil was a furnace of men, overcrowded, violent, ruled by inmates and ignored by guards. For someone accused of abuse, it was worse than hell. The moment Heberson entered the filthy, sweltering cell, every eye turned toward him. Hardened prisoners whispered to each other, lips curling into predatory smiles. In the prison hierarchy, someone accused of such crimes was marked for punishment. The first beating came within hours, the first threat within minutes, the first atrocity soon after. Over weeks that stretched into months, Heberson suffered unspeakable violence from more than 60 inmates. The details were too brutal to recount fully, but their weight crushed him. Guards looked away. Sometimes they laughed. During one particularly savage night, as fists rained down and his body bled, Heberson's mind drifted away from itself, a psychological defense mechanism called dissociation. His brain numbed itself to survive. He imagined his mother's kitchen, the smell of beans and rice, the clatter of her pots. He saw her face, worried and gentle. He clung to that image because everything else was painful. But even this mental escape could not protect him forever. Somewhere in the darkness, amid the humiliation and the beatings, he contracted HIV, a virus that would stay with him even if the prison walls someday opened. Imprisonment is brutal. Wrongful imprisonment is soul-shattering. Psychologists describe it as a double trauma. First, there is the violence of incarceration itself, the daily fear of attack, the deprivation of control over one's body, the suffocating loss of privacy. But layered on top of that is something even deeper, the knowledge of one's own innocence. Guilty men can rationalize prison. They can tell themselves, "I did something wrong. This is my punishment." The innocent have no such shield. For them, every locked door, every insult, every blow is meaningless cruelty. They live not only in fear, but also in disbelief. Why me? What did I do to deserve this? Will anyone ever believe me? Heberson whispered these questions to himself in the dark. He often lay awake on the cold concrete, shaking, repeating his own name as though it might anchor him. "I am Heberson. I did nothing. I do not deserve this." But the walls never answered. Wrongful imprisonment corrodes the mind. Sleep disappears. Anxiety floods the body. Hypervigilance, a constant state of alertness, becomes second nature. Inmates like Heberson live as if every sound is danger, every glance a threat. The brain begins to rewire itself to survive trauma. Adrenaline always high, trust always low. Some nights Heberson dreamed of running free through the streets of Manaus. But in the dream, no one looked at him. His family turned away. Neighbors whispered. When he reached for them, his hands passed through the air. He woke up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, the roar of prison echoing in his ears. Years later, even after release, these memories would not fade. While waiting in line for medicine at an HIV clinic, Heberson once flinched at the sound of keys jangling behind him. In an instant, his mind transported him back to that cell, the stink of unwashed bodies, the scrape of metal, the shouts of men circling him like wolves. He had to step outside, gasping to remind himself, "I am not there anymore. I am free." These are called post-traumatic flashbacks. For Heberson, they were as real as prison itself. His body still carried the fear long after the bars were gone. Outside those walls, someone was finally listening. A public defender reviewed his case carefully. She saw what no one had bothered to notice. There was no evidence, no witnesses, no physical proof, only an accusation that had ruined his life. She filed motion after motion, challenging prosecutors who had no case but refused to admit it. Justice moved slowly, unbearably slowly, but eventually, after 3 years and 3 months, the truth could no longer be ignored. The court acquitted Heberson. He walked out of prison, weak and thin, but alive. And yet, freedom did not feel like victory. When Heberson returned home, neighbors stared. Some crossed the street to avoid him. An acquittal is not an eraser. People believe what they want to believe. The rumor of guilt lingered like a stain. Heberson was now poor, unemployed, and ill. His body bore scars from beatings. His blood carried a virus. His spirit carried memories he could not shake. "I served a sentence for a crime I didn't commit," he told a journalist once. "And now I serve another, poverty and illness." He tried to find work. No one would hire him. He waited hours at a public hospital for HIV medication, sometimes going without because the medicine ran out. Some days he didn't eat. The justice system that had stolen his youth never apologized. It simply unlocked the door and walked away, as though 3 lost years were nothing at all. But Heberson refused to disappear. He began to speak out not only for himself, but for others trapped in the same nightmare. He demanded compensation, not out of greed, but out of dignity. "I don't want revenge," he said quietly. "I just want them to admit they were wrong. I want them to see me as human." The court stalled. Politicians looked away. The same system that had jailed him without evidence now resisted acknowledging its mistake. His case crawled through bureaucracy while he lived in grinding poverty. Human rights groups rallied to his side. Lawyers called his case a symbol of everything wrong with the Brazilian justice system. Quick to punish, slow to repent. But the fight itself was exhausting, reopening wounds every time he stepped into a courthouse. And yet, despite everything, Heberson's spirit did not break completely. He smiled when he could. He held his family close. He found moments of peace, moments when he could play with his young daughter and pretend the world was fair. Sometimes, when the sun set over Manaus and the streets glowed gold, he imagined building again not houses, but hope. Psychologists say resilience is not about avoiding pain. It is about refusing to let pain have the last word. Heberson embodied that resilience. Though scarred, though sick, though betrayed, he still believed in life. He still believed in telling the truth, even if no one wanted to hear it. Heberson Lima de Oliveira's story is not just about one man. It is about what happens when accusation replaces evidence, when poverty equals guilt, when systems meant to protect become tools of destruction. 3 years and 3 months, 60 attackers, a lifelong disease, and a justice system that still refuses to say, "We were wrong." When a state cannot admit its errors, it is not only the innocent who suffer. The entire society rots from within. Heberson's stolen years are a warning. If it can happen to him, it can happen to anyone. And yet, amid the ruins, Heberson stands. Not whole, not unscarred, but unbroken,